Hello everybody. It's Saturday. I didn't do worms yesterday because I was busy doing something else. So, today's the day. European night crawlers. Brooder bin. Let's see what they're doing. Oh, there's a big one. They are, they're still pretty active. And they still got food. So, breeder bin. Oh, there's some little ones. Right on my finger. It's working. We split on December 6th. We took off and made a ENC breeder bin. These are all small worms. They were probably in the bin at the time. And they are active enough around the food zone, out into the wet paper, but mostly around the food zone. And yeah, I'm not going to torment them too much. The bedding is wet, feels good. We're gonna do a little bit more feed. There's still some feed there. I am not going to overfeed them. Just take a little bit of new bedding. Kleenex, aka, hey, look, a slice of bread. And a little bit of apple. And you know what? Let's call that good. Overfeeding young worms is probably not a good idea. There are some older worms in here, but the bin is concentrated on producing babies, right? So let's let it do its thing, and we'll check in again next week. Lots of insects. I'm hoping my gnat trap, which is getting, there's quite a few in there. Hoping my gnat trap goes to work on this. Anyway, it's what it is. They don't necessarily come out of the bin, so I'm not real worried about them. I mean, you see the odd one flying around, but there's not very many flying. That's ENC brooder. This is the ENC breeder. These are the worms that we pulled out of the brooder bin, which was our original ENC that we started October 6th. So we just took out the big guys. And you can see a little dent right here where the food zone was last time. But when we dig into that food zone, there's still a lot of activity. There's a lot of worms there. There's some seeds. Now I'm going to go out on a limb and say the seeds will take a while to break down. I'm not by any means an expert at this. Just because I do it doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so just because I've got some stuff up for more yum yums. I mixed up some bedding, and I'm just going to put a little bit of new bedding. It's coffee grounds, fresh paper, and eggshells, and Oh, what else we got in there? Molasses water. So the molasses water is like sugar. And as you can see, you want the worms, you want in the breeder bin, you want them to find their zone and get mingling and create yourself a little worm singles bar in that area so that they all go to work. And get breeding and get producing you a new batch of cocoons to put into the brooder bin. And it does really speed up the process. According to my experience with my red wigglers, they really, hey guys, where are you going? Get back in. They really got at it. And you guys need to go down in here. And you need to go down there. Okay, now behave yourselves. Okay. Sometimes when you're doing this, they try to make a break for it, but on average, they're not too creepy crawly. They don't try to get out too often. Okay, so that is the ENCs are done. This is my breeder bin for my red wigglers. And they've been doing their thing now for 2 weeks. I put some extra paper in here last week just to absorb some of the extra moisture, and it has worked. There is less moisture in here. And on my breeder bins, this is such a small bin. I feed, as you can see, I fed in the middle last time. And that's what I'm saying by creating a zone for them to get together and breed and do their thing. They're in there, and they're in there in a big way. So I'll just go right beside where they're at. Remember, there's only like 220 worms in there, so we're just going to give them a chunk of pumpkin. Cover them up. Cover everything up. Make sure your food's covered, guys, or else you're going to have way more problems than you want. Put the paper back on. And if you notice, I'm trying not to spend all day doing this because A, I think you guys get bored with too long videos. And B, I'm trying to get to the guys because I'm really excited to see them. The guys are my big bin, and they're just way too much fun to check because they're just going nuts. So this is the cocoons, the guys, cocoons, and babies. This bin is what I have sifted out of the castings from the guys, cocoons, and baby. Or when I do the castings, this is what I said. These are getting sifted out, and I started another bin with them. Just about as simple as that, right? So the last time I feed them about here, right in here. And as you can see, I push their stuff that way, and they're becoming a wedge. You can see more castings at this end than at this end. Although this is all new, fairly new paper. Let's just say, if you feed out a wedge, I had somebody comment to me in the comments that they wanted to know how I got such nice castings out of my bins, because they were having lots of moisture issues. As you can see, these guys are quite active. I mean, there's food and they're at it. That's the turnip, by the way. and it's getting disappeared now. And you don't smell it at all anymore. You used to get a little bit of that gassed off turnip smell when I played with it, and this time around I'm not even getting that. I'm impressed with how many worms are in this bin. There was a time I thought, this isn't working. And I was almost ready to dump everything back into the guys and just let it go, right? And leave it as a kind of a horizontal continuous flow and just let it go. And I decided to give it another couple of weeks, and boy am I glad I did, because they started hatching and they started going crazy, and I'm just really, really, really impressed with the amount of worms I'm getting from just cocoons and babies at sifting time. Like, it is the easiest way to start another bin, and it is very efficient. They're having a ball. Okay, down here in the corner, let's just talk about this for a minute. Down here at the back, this is where I put the dry bedding, and it feels dry. Over here, everything feels moist to the touch. So as I work it that way, that's my wedge working to the end. And I know it's not a big bin, but it's just easier to get the castings out when it comes time to get the castings out, because your castings are in better shape, and they're more finished, and they're more clean, and they're more mature, and they're more ready to go. And they really, really work. It really works well. You'll see that when we get into the guys bin, because the guys bin are so much fun. So much fun, guys. Okay, so that one there is done. So this one is my brooder bin for my red wigglers. And these all came as cocoons, and mostly cocoons at the time. This is like coming on 4 months old of a brooder bin now, and like I have red wigglers that are at breeding age. That guy's got his clitellum. So theoretically now, not theoretically, it's happening now. I have a double thing going on here. I've got cocoons hatching from my breeder bin setup, like from coming out of the breeder bin that have been put in here. And I've got worms breeding in this bin. And it gets pretty exciting when you get to this level. I mean, just look at these. They're definitely doing their thing, and they're definitely doing well. And there we go. There's a few. There's a clue. More than a clue, guys. They're everywhere you look, and they're doing great. So the person that commented to me that their castings are muddy and wet, down in this bin, my castings are muddy and wet. But I have not been operating this bin in a manner that I'm looking to harvest my castings. I mean, yes, they're making castings, but they're not, how do I put it? I'm not operating it to the full potential of making the castings in the proper shape to harvest, because this bin has a long time to go yet before I'm going to be harvesting any castings out of it. But as you see what I'm doing here, I'm taking I'm taking the material, I'm taking what they're working in, and I'm moving it to one end. So when I do that, I've got a little bit of food left here. Mostly just onion peels. And I mean, guys, they say don't put onion peels in your bins. That's a matter of context, guys, and girls. Don't try to get offended by what I say when I just say guys. I mean everyone. That'll eventually break down once the microbes in the bin work on it and soften it up and get it to the point where they want it. Then it will soften up. So we're just going to feed these guys now. And let them have air. So it's not just, everybody has high moisture situations. And in a brooder bin for the eggs to hatch, you want good moisture. You have to have good moisture. Okay. So my moisture is good. I'm just going to throw some of this at the back. This is just started bedding, like I said. And I'm just going to throw a little bit in, because this is dry stuff. This is wet stuff. And I need a cloth. So my cloth is just yesterday's t-shirt. Take it off, wipe my hands so I don't. Anyhow, don't get too fussy on what I do. So we'll just go on to the next one. Now, I cover this end, which is my working end. This is my dry end of my dry. But then I cover it all with this, right? So this covers the whole bin, keeps the evaporation and the condensation in, and everything's just fine. You know, I'm very impressed with the way my worms are stepping up and doing what I want them to do. So, this is the fat guys, the big guys. And there's not many worms in here, and we've talked about this, and this, to me, this bin is like a little more than a work in progress. It just doesn't seem to be doing anything, but, you know, I let her go, and I see what they're doing, and they're still alive, and there's big worms, and they're right, like, that's a big worm. They're not active. They are in the food zone, but there is still food there. This over here is getting dried up. So we're just going to give it some more moisture. You know what? It just, because we're not feeding them to the level that we're feeding the other bins, and moisture comes into the food, you just definitely sometimes have to give these guys, and this is sugar water, so it should be just like, you know, giving the kids sugar. Should activate them, should get them rolling and doing things, but quite honestly, I don't have a lot of hope for this bin. I think it's just going to end up going to the garden or some other place and getting my bucket back, because I don't ever see anything happening in it. Getting some pot worms, I believe. Are you a pot worm? No. Hey. I'm not sure if you can see this on the plastic. Very hard to see, probably. You know, my wish may be coming true. There may be worms showing, like baby worms starting to show up here, because your babies show up on top of paper. I've got paper, and I've got a condensation level here between the paper and the plastic, and there is little worms on the plastic now. So, hey, maybe we've got some progress going on. All right, now we get to the exciting part. The guys, the big guys. The big guys. I don't want to make you dizzy. Sorry about that. So, oh, that didn't work. Do a check, make sure. Maybe zoom in a little. How's that sound? Zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay. So, of course, anybody's been following me along with me, you'll know that this is my main bin. This is the guys. And these guys are fun to check because they are busy. And, okay. So, on top of the plastic, I don't see too much worms. I'm sure if you really look, you'll find some small ones. As soon as you take that off, you've got worms. You got a breeder pair of worms there. They are doing what breeders do, guys. Let's just face it, that's what we want our bin to do. So we're just gonna take the paper off. So this bag is like 3 weeks old, month old, something like that. 3 weeks old, I think. They're munching and crunching through it. There's that breeder pair. There's another breeder pair. So do you see what I mean when I say this bin is good and active? Like really active. And when you see your worms up on top of the bin like that, when you open them up, you know you've got good activity. Okay. So there's virtually nothing left of that. So we're just going to toss it that way. Not worth putting it out. So, okay. For the benefit of the people that asked me, the person that asked me about my castings and how do I get them so nice, here we go. I am going to show you the example of what I'm talking about. This is my working end. This is where all the castings come this way. My feed zone's down here. I feed this in a wedge situation. So if you were to start a brand new bin, you'd feed it here and put your worms in and cover it up, and then you'd feed it here, and then next time you'd feed it here, and next time you'd feed it here, and then you get to the end, right, and you go, oh my god, I got no more room. So you just kind of munch everything back this way, and then you just feed it that end. Might be oversimplifying it just a tad, but it's pretty simple. It's not difficult, guys. And then you get castings like that. So I continue doing my, take the big pieces, throw them that way. They just come back through the system. Take your paper that's on the top because the worms always push up what they're not using. But if you've noticed, the last couple times, they're not pushing up as much paper at this end. But they are pushing up stuff like pumpkin seeds. They are pushing up, sticks, little sticks. They are still pushing stuff up. But my feeling is once they get into that point, they're utilizing more of what's here, so they're not expelling it from the castings. Let's just reach down and do a turn. Just a nice rollover turn. So there we have it. That's just one handful. And there's a lot of worms in there. And I just throw the stuff that sprouts backwards and it comes back through as worm food, right? I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is a really, really, really fun bin to check because they're just so active. Like, and there's all sizes in here, and I'm sure they're right down to like the wisp size, which is you almost need a magnifying glass to see them. You gotta have the light just right and everything to see them, and you're just definitely not gonna find them in a bunch of material like this, but they're there. I will guarantee you they are there. And it's just, I aerate and fluff my castings just like I'm doing now. I just turn it and work it, because with this many worms, and I mean there's moisture in here, it's not dry, but it's light. They're doing what we want. Then just push it down and turn it some more. Just keep aerating it. I aerate my stuff every week, and I know some people say don't do that. Well, you're in a closed system, and I don't have moisture drains in my bins. I don't drill moisture drains. I have a tub. I manage my moisture with putting dry bedding in, and I've kind of tweaked it and figured it out on how to do that to the point where my castings are like, they're not muddy. They're like this is, I'd say, I don't know, I'll reevaluate it next week, but I'd say right after Christmas, we're at, I believe we're at December 16th, 17th. We're at December 17th. I lose track of time. We're at December 17th, so next week, next check will be between Christmas and New Year's, or just before Christmas. I don't think I'm going to sift between Christmas and New Year's. But after New Year's, I bet you I'm going to need to sift. And I'm thinking we're going to have a big area, like almost half of the bin is ready to sift. Did a grape stick. There's some paper. But you know, as it comes this way, they go through it more. They use more of it. It gets, like, we push everything this way, right to the top level, like right to, not humped up. But we move it as we're fluffing it. Like, there's a little more than a clue of worms in here, guys. I'm pulling out like hundreds and hundreds of worms in a handful. And they're busy. They're just everywhere out of that last couple of handfuls, but it was like that all the way through. But this is really concentrated because we're getting closer to the food zone. So, you know, as we get closer to that food zone, we're going to find more worms. We're finding less worms out here because we're feeding over here. But I guess what I'm trying to say is we fluffed this whole end up now. So it's to the pretty much the height we want. So we're going to just make stuff move this way. And then we're going to fluff our feeding zone. And you guys want to see some worms? There's worms. That's our feed zone. So there's a big difference between here and our feed zone. My feed zone is active. So I've been showing this turnip for, I bet you 2.5 months. It just got to the point where it turned to mush. Next week, that turnip is pretty much going to be gone. Come back in here, little feller. I can't even blame the worm for trying to escape there, because I probably threw him out. So this is a very active feed zone. I want you to keep in mind, this is not going to happen for you in a month. This bin is 9 months old. We set it up in March, kind of in the middle of March of 2023. But you see how I move, as I'm doing this, I move this stuff this way. And don't overthink it. Like, just grab it and give it a turn. There's some, you know, we're probably back here where I fed last time on the, yeah, there's a chunk of pumpkin skin. So there's my feed zone, my actual feed zone. Let's come in on this side and see what we got down here. Oh yes. Yeah. Like I say, this is always just so much fun to check out, because I've got worm balls now. Like, after 9 months, I've got worm balls, and I'm so happy, because you see everybody else's videos on YouTube, and they're just their bins are just like full, and you wonder how come mine isn't. It takes time. Just look at that. That's an active bin, but it's not new. It's in there in the coffee. Oh boy, are they ever in the coffee. I put my coffee at the end here last time, and they love coffee. Okay, so see what I did here, right? I made room. Guess what? I'm gonna feed them. We're gonna give them lots, because there's lots of worms in here. And I'm not scared of overfeeding them, because this is a pretty big bin. I mean, it's probably 36 inches long, 24 inches wide. All of this end down here is a safe zone for them. They can always, if I happen to put too much food in where something goes stinky or bad, which I haven't yet, they can come back this way and get away from it. And this is cool and moist, and this is their old stomping grounds. They know the biology's here and everything's here for them, right? But they're not doing that. The big feedings that I've been giving them, they are swallowing them up, and just it's so much fun when you get a bin like this. Yeah, there's a little bit of old food there. Don't care. They say, and I agree, don't, if your worms haven't gone through the food from the last feeding, don't feed. Let them get through it. Well, I agree to that to a point. But you can see the amount that I feed them, and that little bit that's left is, like, in another couple days would be gone. So do you see how, like, all the moisture from all that food, it ends up in the bin. I have not watered this bin or given any moisture other than food to this bin for, oh man, I can't remember how long it's been. It's been a really long time. So we're gonna give them a real good feeding. And try to mix it up. If you got different stuff, mix it up. If you don't, feed what you got. And I know other worm farms use worm chow. I don't. And I don't feel bad about it. There's a reason I don't use worm chow, and it's a personal reason, because what I want to do is set up my worms, my worm farm, so that it is a recycling, regenerative worm farm. And to my concept, to buy grains and mix it up for worm chow, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the idea, but it's not in my program, it's not in my context. Okay, so this, I say, I just finished saying, I don't add much moisture. This stuff here has got moisture in it because I pre-started it, right? But I'm not going to fill it right to the top. I am going to come back. I want my food covered. But I'm coming back in with some dry. Because this is how I monitor and keep my moisture in check in these bins. And this is how I don't have muddy stuff. So there we go. Let's just review for the benefit of the person that commented to me, how do I get castings that are so nice and workable? This is how. Bring your castings to this end. Put your feed zone here. Give them room to get to a dry spot, which is back in this edge over here. This is a fairly good sized bin. It's not just one of those little gray tubs. Those little gray tubs are a great bin for developing a population, but they're hard, in my view, they're hard to get the wedge system going because they're so small. So this paper is just about done. This is the stuff I put on this end. This just helps hold the moisture in. There's that brown bag. That brown bag is pretty much getting to be done. So I put it over the castings end. The paper that's still fairly much intact, put it over the feed zone. And then just take whatever you got left and put it over the dry zone. And that, so now the plastic, I use old plastic shopping bags, and I put them at the working end. This is the working end. This is the casting trying to mature end. So, don't want to cover my castings up with a plastic bag thoroughly. I want to leave this open. This is how I get my castings to be so workable. They come to the proper moisture consistency by themselves. I cover this end with the bubble wrap. And this up to here with bubble wrap. Nice, close, neat. And then I cover the whole thing with a lid, but I don't close the lid tight. Now's a good time to check and see what's going on. That's a potworm, but anyway, you will get some potworms. So I leave this end open that much. And that is it. That's how I feed my worms to get my castings so that they are workable. So like, share, subscribe, comment, hit the notification buttons if you like what we're doing. Obviously, some of you guys must like what we're doing. Our channel's growing, and I would like to take a minute or two to just thank you guys all for sharing your time to view what we're putting out here. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're getting something out of it. I'm learning along the way, and I welcome anyone that wants to learn along with me to to join in and watch and ask questions. Questions are always appreciated. Comments are always appreciated. I hope I helped my commenter out in explaining how I get my castings this way. I hope it all makes sense to her. Anyway, that's it for December 17th, 2023 for the feeding and the explanation on the worm castings and how I get it that way. I'm going to sign off. Have a great week. Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a good holiday.